Hey folks. Okay, before we get into talking about some actual programming and getting into the meat of the course, I wanted to give you a little bit of unsolicited advice on how to go through and survive this course and hopefully succeed in it. This applies to pretty much any first year programming course, but it's definitely something that'll be useful for folks here. Actually, the first thing I might do is get rid of that floating head. So, the two things you need to do, and this is easy to say, it's a little tougher to stick with in practice, are keep up and get a ton of coding practice in. So, for this course, pretty much everything that we introduce as we go through, you're going to use constantly after we introduce it. So the material that we cover in the first 10 days or so, we're going to use in pretty much every program we write for the rest of the semester. And the stuff we cover in the second and third week, you're going to use pretty much every week from then on out. And stuff we do in the fourth and fifth week, you're going to use pretty much every week from then on out. So it's very much a case of if you fall behind, if we hit a topic that you don't understand or you miss it and you don't have a chance to catch up, then that really puts you in a bad position for the rest of the semester because there's something that you need in order to do the current week's work that you don't understand, and you still have to learn the current week's work as well. And so this really tends to snowball. If you miss a topic or you don't grasp a particular topic, then it gets really, really difficult to get back on track afterwards. So it is very much a case of stay on top of things. So really it comes down to if you don't understand something, get help. And I'll talk about that in just a second, but come see me, come see the tutors, talk to friends, talk to other people in the lab, look for other resources. But it's very much a case of if you don't understand something, fix the problem now before it gets much, 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 much worse. And related to that is the other part, the sort of practice, practice, practice. Coding involves learning a programming language and learning problem solving skills and learning design skills. And very much that comes down to fluency in the language and experience and confidence in the problem solving and design. And the only way you get those things is practicing. And by practicing, I don't mean sort of read examples and look at examples that other people have done. I mean actually writing small programs, compiling them, debugging them, testing them to make sure that they work. So it's that sequence of actually implementing the code, compiling it and seeing what the compiler yells at and tracking down where the problems are. That's where your debugging skills and your programming skills come from, your problem solving skills, right? Looking at a particular problem, saying, write a program to do blah, thinking up a design to do that, and testing out your design, right? Implementing it, checking it. That's where your skills come from. That's where your experience comes from. That's where your confidence comes from. And it really is important to do that as much as possible. Now, I know everybody's got a full course load and other things going on, and you've got life outside this place. But it really is important to get in as much practice as you can, as much practical work as you can. Now, again, as I was saying a bit ago, there can come times when you don't understand something or where you discover that you are in trouble. And I just wanted to talk about kind of what to do if you do hit that point, right? Don't panic, don't freak out. It only tends to make things worse because you're so busy stressing over things that it's difficult to think through what you need to do. Come see me, come talk to me. Drop by my office if you've got time. Fire me an email, catch me after class or after labs. And we'll see what we can do. We'll see what we can come up with in the way of other exercises or other explanations, or we can just talk through what's going on, talk through whatever the particular issue happens to be, and we can figure things out. The department runs a computer science help center that's staffed by upper level students, and they're very helpful because they've gone through the same things that you're going through, and so they understand the problems that you're facing, the concepts that you're trying to grasp. Go talk to them. Traditionally, that's been in room 102 in our building in 315. I gather that this semester we've moved our first year labs into building 356 room 340. I'm not sure if we've moved the help center there too or not, but I'll give you updates on that as we get into the term. In terms of trying to get back on track, make sure that you've worked through all of the labs in sequence. So if you happen to have missed a lab, if there was a lab that you didn't get done, then it's worth going back and doing the work on that, because again, it's practice and understanding and comprehension that helps you work through things. And if you're not understanding a current topic, it might well be because you didn't fully grasp one of the earlier topics. So make sure you've gone through all the labs. Make sure you understand each of them. Not just a case of, oh, well, it kind of worked and I got 50% on it, so it's okay. Make sure that you understand what's involved in those labs, because again, you need that stuff for everything else you do in the semester. Dig through the course website. I've got a ton of stuff, a ton of different resources there, a ton of different examples. Do lots of practice programs. Again, as I was saying earlier, practice, practice, practice. So try lots of practice problems. I've thrown together a list of them there that you can have a look at. So just a whole bunch of different things in kind of escalating difficulty. So go through, and if you're looking for ideas on things to try out, take a look at those. Try digging up other resources. There's a ton of them. I haven't checked to see if any of these are dead links or not, so fire me an email if any of them are out of date, or if you come across other resources that are good. But again, lots of practice is the best way to get back on track and to make sure that you understand what's going on. But tackle the issue as soon as you possibly can. All right. The other thing that's kind of related to all this that I wanted to get into is, how do you study for a course like this? And we're going to have several quizzes over the course of the term and then the final exam at the end. And this is really not a course that you can cram for, right? It's not a course where you can sit down at the last minute and try and memorize everything, in a night or 2 nights and go in and do well on an exam. Because in the exam, we get you to solve problems in code. You need to be fluent with the code. You need to be confident in your problem-solving skills. You need the experience. And so you need to have been working on this stuff as the semester goes along. So again, you can't study how to write code. You have to practice it to get good at writing custom code. And you're going to have to solve new coding problems on any exam. You really can't study how to find bugs in code, right? If I throw a question at you, find the error in this, then you need to be able to understand the code. And again, that doesn't come from cramming, that comes from practice. So it is something that you need to think about now. As the semester goes along, keep working on things, keep up with things. If you are getting in lots of practice every week and you're doing well in the labs and you're understanding what's going on in the labs, then the odds are you're going to be perfectly okay from when it comes to an exam. I know some people have sort of panic issues with exams, and that's something else that we can talk about and deal with. But in terms of just pure ability, you'll be okay if you're keeping up with the labs and doing well in them and understanding them. When it does come time to tackle some of this stuff, and we'll go back over these as we get closer to the exam time, but when you're looking over old code and you are sort of trying to do some studying and brushing up, then look at old code that you've written, look at old problems, and just kind of recap in your mind. You're going to get better and better at programming as the semester goes along, and you can go back and look at old code you've written, and we all do this. You look at old code you've written and go, oh, why did I do that? What was I thinking? And it would be so much better if I did this. And that moment, it would be so much better if I did this, is a learning experience. It's an important skill to develop. Oh, this would be better if. So make sure you go through and see if you can understand all the features that are being used. See if you can read and understand all the code that's floating around, all the different examples that are there. If you look at an algorithm I provide, could you produce code for it, right? Ask that question in your head as you're going through looking at things. If you see a problem, a written problem, can you look at that and go, okay, I would design a solution like that in this way. So think about these kinds of issues. What would I do differently? How could I solve this problem? How does this translate into this? These are all questions to kind of ask yourself when you're going back and looking over old code. And one of the big things, and this is going to be true not just for this course, but for software development in general. If you're going to be in this field, it's really important to be able to deal with word problems. What's going to happen is throughout your career, somebody's going to come to you and they're going to explain from sort of a lay perspective, this is what I want. Can you give me a program that does this? Or they're going to come to you and say, this piece of software, when I want to do this, it does that. Can you solve my problem? Why does it do that? So you're constantly going to be given a description of a problem in, a natural language, English or whatever it happens to be, and you're going to have to go dive into code and figure out what the problem really is, how their description relates to what's happening at the code level. And so you have to be able to make that transition. You have to be able to make that mental translation. That's going to be very important for surviving this course and for doing well in your career in this business. Okay, I think that's all of the kind of soapboxy stuff that I wanted to get into. In the next videos, we'll start getting into some actual development. See what we can talk about in terms of languages and systems and where we can go from there.